Hello, fellow Movie Crusaders, and welcome to the latest episode. Today, we're going to be reviewing the sequel to the 1988 comedy Coming to America. That's right, this movie is 33 years later since the original film starring Eddie Murphy and Arsenio Hall. That is beloved by many. Some think it's one of Eddie Murphy's best comedies of all time. This movie went straight to Amazon Prime. It was supposed to be released in theaters, but obviously because of pandemic and stuff like that, it went straight to Amazon Prime for free. The main plot of Coming to America is that this film takes place 30 years after the events of the first film. Prince Akeem, played by Eddie Murphy, is about to take the throne as his father, King Jafar, played by James Earl Jones, is on his deathbed. But the problem that they're seeing is that over the 30 years that he has been married to Lisa, played by the returning Sherry Headley, is that they've only had 3 daughters. They've never had a male heir. So the warring country run by General Izzy, played by Wesley Snipes, who was the brother of the woman that Akeem was supposed to marry in the first film. Anyone who remembers the original Coming to America, she is the bark like a dog and hop on one leg girl. There's obviously been a rivalry there, and basically Izzy demands that Eddie Murphy that Akeem marries one of his daughters to Izzy's son to reunite the countries, or they will go to war. But Akeem finds out that he has a bastard son living in New York, so him and Semi decide to go to New York to find his bastard son and bring him back to Zamunda to basically take the rightful heir to the throne. Now, with this film, I mean, you have a few different elements you could go into. It's a beloved comedy. Everyone, for the most part, loved Coming to America with Eddie Murphy. It was right in the hot zone of Eddie Murphy. With 1988, he had 48 Hours, Trading Places, Beverly Hills Cop. Like, this was when Eddie Murphy was hot. Now Eddie Murphy's kind of starting to come back into the acting phase after he kind of went away for about a decade because he just kept making bad movie after bad movie. He had Dolomite Is My Name a couple years back, which was fantastic. So for him to come back to this film, excited a lot of people, especially when they brought back pretty much the entire cast. Everyone, I think, except for Lisa's sister, Patrice, and Eric LaSalle from the first film is back in this. So for fans of the first film, you're going to love seeing the cameos or the co-stars of the original film coming back. But the main problem that you're going to run into with a sequel that's so far removed from the first film is, does it have a unique new idea, or is it just rehashing the same old jokes that we've seen before? That happened with Super Troopers. When Super Troopers 2 came out a few years back, it basically was a retrend of the same old jokes from the first film with some new ones added in. And it was fine, but it wasn't up to par with the first film. I could probably name you 10 other comedies that had sequels over 10 years removed from its predecessor, and they just felt like retrends of the old film and not a whole lot new brought to the page. Zoolander 2, there's another one, except that one was just god-awful. The main thing is, can Coming to America be unique and different enough to separate itself from the original film while still being just as good? And the answer is no, it cannot. Coming to America basically follows the same comedic trend that all these other sequels have done in the past. It reuses a lot of the same jokes. It basically goes, remember this joke from the first film that was so funny? Here it is 30 years later. It's not funny anymore, but here it is. People who are diehard fans of the first film, where it's one of their favorite films of all time, they will probably get a kick out of these jokes, and they will probably love these jokes on a very higher level than someone like me who was fine with the first film, but I didn't love it like a lot of people did. To me, these jokes just felt like they didn't have a good idea, so let's just throw this joke out there. It took, let's put it this way, the first 30 minutes of this film is god-awful. It just felt like, let's throw cameo after cameo after cameo in this film because we really don't know what we want to do. and they were kind of just stumbling along the way until they could figure out a plot. But the thing is that the plot is not anything unique. The plot is not anything different. It's basically a reverse story of coming to America. Instead of Akeem going to New York and learning how the world of New York is on his own, away from his his royalty and kingdom. In this situation, we have Lavelle Johnson, played by Jermaine Fowler, who I think is great in the film. I actually, pretty much when the entire story removes itself from the previous Coming to America cast and focuses on Jermaine's character, Lavelle, I actually don't hate the film. But like I said, it's basically Lavelle now, who all he knows is the U.S. and New York, being thrown into Zamunda and having to learn to adapt to royalty and all this stuff. So it's basically just a reversal trend of the previous story. The cast, Eddie Murphy is fine in his role. He doesn't do anything big or anything great to really stand out. It's just a basic Eddie Murphy performance. He's basically just playing Akeem. But even then, he doesn't have the qualities that made you love the Akeem character in the first film. He's more like James Earl Jones's character, with just Eddie Murphy-esque to it. Arsenio Hall is basically kind of barely in the film as Semi. Semi's barely in the movie as it is. He's got a few scenes. Arsenio probably takes more time playing the other characters. What him and Eddie Murphy played multiple characters in the first film. For the most part, all those characters come back, which frankly, some of the ages of these characters in the first film, they should be dead by now based off of where we are in the future. But yet they all show back up, and all those characters, none of them are funny. They're just retrended old jokes from the first film. I will say Sherry Headley, who plays Lisa, I think she was great. I thought she was fantastic. The three daughters of Eddie Murphy, I thought all three of them were real solid. The main one being Mika, played by Kiki Lane. Many people will know her from last year's The Old Guard, who I said, watch out for her. She's a fantastic actress, and you're going to start seeing more of her. She is great in this film, along with Jermaine Fowler. Leslie Jones, I personally cannot stand Leslie Jones or Tracy Morgan. They're both in this film. Their first few scenes are tiresome, just like they are, but they do pull back a little bit on those two, so they're not as bad as the movie goes on. Wesley Snipes is great in like the 3 or 4 scenes he's in, so I really have nothing negative to say about Wesley Snipes. Pretty much all the new characters that they bring in, such as Mika, Lavelle, and General Izzy, are interesting and unique enough to make you want to keep watching the film, whereas all the old characters from the previous film are the ones that really bring it down. I mean, you can say the same thing about Fuller House on Netflix. When they brought back the old Full House characters such as Danny, Joey, and Uncle Jesse, they really brought that show down. But when they left and it was just about the girls, the show had more life and the show was more interesting. And the same thing goes with Coming to America. When they focus on Lavelle and Mika and the younger kids, or basically the new guard instead of the old guard, the movie actually starts to have some legs. It's interesting. It's got some comedic moments. Not really laugh out loud comedic moments, more just kind of like a snicker. I think the first time I actually chuckled in this film was around the 45-minute mark, and that was with the youngest daughter. But it still follows beat for beat the same trends. If you've seen the first film, you know in the first 10 minutes how this film is going to end. And you see everything coming a mile away. There's nothing unique. There's nothing new. There's nothing shocking about this film. But I digress. If you are a huge, huge fan of the very first Coming to America, you'll probably really enjoy this film. You'll probably have a fun time watching it because it's bringing back all these characters that you love. But for me, who thought the first Coming to America was a fine comedy, this just feels like a failed attempt to try and get kind of a cash grab from these fans of the previous film. It doesn't bring anything new to the film. It doesn't bring anything fun or exciting. If anything, I think it hinders and hurts the old film than it does actually building on it. And they actually even have a joke or a line in the film that sequels tend to ruin the original films, and they should not be touched, except for in this one. They make sure to put that line in the movie. Frankly, they should have left that line out because it's true. Comedies, for the most part, should not have sequels. There are a few gems out there that work. This one is not one of them. Going to my overall score, I'm going to give Coming to America a 54%. That is a C grade because, like I said, once they focus on the new characters like Jermaine Fowler and Kiki Lane, the story is at least somewhat passable. But the old guard with Arsenio and Eddie Murphy just are not funny. If you are interested in seeing how this movie could be compared to the first one, but you weren't a huge fan of the first one, I'd pass on this. If you're a diehard fan of the first one, you're already probably seen this by now, or you're going to see it. So my review is probably not going to change your opinion about it at all. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. If you guys did, go ahead and hit that like button. If you guys feel like this review is worth sharing, go ahead and hit that share button. But most importantly, don't forget to hit the subscribe button to the channel so you guys stay up to date with all the latest videos that pop up with Sean's Movie Crusades. And of course, don't forget to follow us on all the social media outlets you see below. Coming up next, we have the latest Disney film, Raya and the Last Dragon. It is highly regarded so far as one of the year's best, so we will see exactly how that review plays out next time. So till I see you, in case I don't see you, good morning, good afternoon, and good night, Movie Crusaders.
You're still here? It's over. Go home.